Hello, my name is David Green, and I'm the Senior Vice President of Programming at Playhouse Square. On behalf of Playhouse Square and our friends at the Cuyahoga County Public Library, I am excited to welcome you and our guest, Orin Wolf. Orin is a Tony Award-winning producer with credits that include The Band's Visit, To Kill a Mockingbird, Fiddler on the Roof, Beautiful, Once, and That Championship Season. He's also the president of Networks Presentations, a theatrical production company that brings the best of Broadway on tour around the country and the world. He's also the initial recipient and current director of the Prince Fellowship for Creative Producing at Columbia University. This, of course, named for the legendary Hal Prince, one of his mentors. Orin now calls New York City home, but he grew up right here in Cuyahoga County and proudly represents Cleveland in the Broadway community. Welcome, Orin.
Happy to be here.
So tell us, what was it like growing up in Cleveland for you?
Well, it was where I fell in love with the theater. I grew up in Cleveland Heights, Ohio, bounced around at a lot of different schools, but at a pretty young age, started doing shows at Heights Youth Theater, which was a youth theater that I know is still in business today. At the time, it took place at Wiley Elementary School. And after school, I would get shepherded by my parents and start doing musicals at a young age and going to rehearsals. And I actually fell in love with the theater there. I fell in love with some friends that I made and a community that I found that was different than the community at school. I wasn't tremendously athletic, like I wasn't into sports the way a lot of other kids were. So theater really became my respite. But I had an amazing childhood, bounced around Cleveland Heights, ended up going to the university school, which was a preparatory school that was in Shaker Heights up until high school. And then it was way out near Chagrin Falls. And stayed there until my senior year in high school when I left US and attended the North Carolina School of the Arts, which is where I graduated and got my high school diploma before going to college in Connecticut. But I feel very connected to Cleveland. My mother's still there. My stepfather's still there. I go back often, and I was very lucky to have seen a lot of tours at Playhouse Square growing up.
Do you remember the first show you saw at Playhouse Square?
You know, that's a very good question. The first one, probably not, because my mother and father, I mean, they were patrons, so I was going at a very young age. But I was just talking recently about seeing Peter Pan at a young age, the touring production, Kathy Rigby. And I had a distinct memory of that, only because we're looking at that production now and we're having conversations about it. I remember seeing some of like my first time I ever saw a circus without animals, more like a Cirque du Soleil style thing. I remember being at Playhouse Square at a very young age. I saw shows at Cleveland Playhouse too, but at the time when I was young, it wasn't yet folded into the complex the way it is now. But that lobby, going through those doors, you know, being in that magnificent gilded lobby with hallways that just stretched on forever. I just remember at a young age just being enamored with it and just thinking it was this palace, quite literally, and quite literally a palace. But it just makes such an impression on you, you know, when you're a kid from the suburbs and it's not really your world, but you walk into this majestic place. And now going to, you know, being in New York City and going and seeing shows on Broadway and the sort of the majesty of that, the majestic nature of what it's like to walk into a theater. Looking back at my childhood in Cleveland, I recognize how similar it was. You know, you really do get a Broadway type of experience every time you walk into Playhouse Square because it really has that kind of majesty to it. It has that kind of sort of regal feel to it. It feels special, and that stayed with me my whole life.
We've been very fortunate to be able to present a number of the shows that you have produced. Beautiful, The Band's Visit, To Kill a Mockingbird coming up. And so we've been fortunate to have you here in Cleveland for many of those productions. What's it like to walk into the theater in your hometown, knowing that the show that's on stage is the one that you put together?
It's amazing. I've always been involved in the touring business. I've always been passionate about touring. ever since I started sort of pursuing a career as a theater producer. The road was always something that I really loved. But that whole the reason why I love it, and the sort of the feeling I get of pride and of feeling like I'm making a real impact by sharing something that I love with audiences that might not otherwise see it. It's an indescribable feeling, and when you do it in your hometown, when you're bringing something that you believe in, that you love, to your hometown, where not only all the Broadway subscribers and ticket buyers in Cleveland get to see these shows, but so many people in my community, my friends that I grew up with, their parents, people that raised me, my parents, and the pride that it gives them, and their them being able to invite their friends. No, it's indescribable. I'm so lucky that I get to enjoy that I get to experience that. It's incredibly lucky. It's one of the highlights for me of being able to do so many shows in Cleveland. Not to mention the relationships I've developed with you and with Gina and your team. I feel like you guys have been such supporters of mine since my career began. And I feel like David, you and I have really come up together, and like we've known each other a very long time. And I think because I'm a producer that's really, fortified my career on the road, I feel like it's family. I feel like you guys are like family. And I feel that way about a lot of presenters around the country, but certainly Cleveland is special for me because of that.
You mentioned that we've come up together. Orin and I have grown up in this industry together. And before he was a Broadway producer, he ran an off-Broadway booking agency. And we worked together on shows like Dixie's Tupperware Party, and My Mother's Italian, My Father's Jewish, and I'm in Therapy. Yep. Miss Abigail's Guide to Dating, Mating, and Marriage. I don't know why you chose shows that had such long titles, but we have a number of years. We've worked together for a number of years, and it's very exciting to now be working on full-scale Broadway shows together. How did you make the leap from running a small off-Broadway booking agency to producing some of the best shows on Broadway of the last 10 years?
Well, when I pursued this sort of agency track of being a booking agent and starting off Broadway booking, my passion was always to produce theater. That's always what I wanted to do. But I didn't have a pool of money to live off of. I had to, from the second I got out of college and got to New York City, I had to earn a living. I had to pay rent. I had to make money. And it's very difficult to make a consistent living as a theater producer. That's why a lot of producers either have trust funds, or they come into this business having already had a first career making money doing something else. It's not uncommon, because truly it's hard to support yourself. Theater producing is up and down. You can go for long stretches of time without making any money. There's a saying that I've repeated often because it's true, which is you can't make a living, but you can make a killing. And that's true. And I'm now on the other side of that. I have more consistency. I've got more bandwidth to produce shows that can earn money. And my initial entree into the booking agency, though, to starting one, was because I needed to earn a living, and booking tours, because I was passionate about the road, was something I could get behind. So I was selling those shows, all the ones you just mentioned. And to answer your question, as a side note, why did those shows all have such long titles? I realized when you have a much smaller budget and you're doing a much smaller show and you're touring it, you don't have the money to advertise. So the title has to do a lot of work. That's why they're so long. Like, if I can't make someone laugh with a title, I may not have another way to sell them a ticket. So sometimes the title is the only thing you got. Back to my story, though. So as I was doing the booking agency thing, I was always keeping my tentacles in Broadway and developing new works and seeing what was going on. I was developing some of my own shows, but also starting to support and raise money for other people's shows. In fact, a lot of the titles you mentioned that I proudly have a credit on, I wasn't the lead producer, right? On a show like Beautiful, which was a terrific success, I certainly supported it financially. I wasn't in there on the day-to-day making all the decisions. I was a financial producer. So it's a much more passive way to take a stake in a show and to be involved and supportive without having it be your full-time job. And that's really how I ultimately was able to carve out a path for me to become a more full-time producer, by supporting other people's shows, by finding some success. And then ultimately, having developed my own shows, I was able to kind of go out and be sort of the lead producer on something like The Band's Visit and a bunch of other shows that were now in development. Along that path too, I ended up retiring from off-Broadway booking and merging that company with another company, and came down and joined the team of networks. They were interested in my skills as an agent and my understanding of producing. It was a good fit, and was working under Ken Gentry, who founded the company. And he really brought me in to kind of groom me to help take the company over. And so now I'm the president, and I've been there for over 10 years. And it's a great honor for me because I get to produce now, both on Broadway, but through networks, I get to produce tours, which is my passion. So I really...
That's worked out well for you, obviously, and it's also worked out really well for the road and all of the audiences, because the shows that you and networks put on the road are top notch, and our audiences have really enjoyed them.
That means everything to me. I really, really appreciate that compliment.
So let's jump forward to Kill a Mockingbird. How did you get involved with this project?
I wasn't the original producer of this project, as some of your audiences may know. It was a project that Scott Rudin was developing, a prolific Broadway and Hollywood producer, and he had been working with Aaron Sorkin and Bart Scher for many years on adapting the book and into a script, and then ultimately putting it up at the Shubert Theater. And during the pandemic, Scott decided to take a step back, and I was brought in through one of Scott's partners, Barry Diller, who remains one of the producers of the show. They asked if I would come in and help sort of take it on coming out of the pandemic, to sort of lead the charge with the show reopening on Broadway at the Shubert with Jeff Daniels. Before that happened, I had already been working with them on touring it. I work with lots of Broadway producers. Even if I'm not the Broadway producer myself, I work with a lot of Broadway producers on helping them take out their tours, because clearly at networks, we have a singular focus and we're very good at doing what we do, we think. So I was already working on the national tour of To Kill a Mockingbird before COVID shut everything down. So when they were looking to sort of resume performances on Broadway, it made a great deal of sense for me to take that on, because I was already working on the show. I already had a very long history with Bart Scher and the rest of the creative team. So it seemed like a good fit. And yeah, that's how I got into it. And so we started the show back up in New York. It was a terrific success. We brought Jeff Daniels back in and Celia Keenan-Bolger, who was playing Scout. All the while getting set up for our national tour, which is now in its final weeks of rehearsal. We're getting ready to go tech. Richard Thomas is just not only an extraordinary actor. I cannot wait to see him play the role of Atticus, but an extraordinary person and a real leader. We have an amazing cast. I really think.
Tell us a little bit about the cast. Obviously Richard Thomas, the Emmy Award winner, and it's just a stellar cast. I saw when the announcement came out, I personally got excited about it. And we have a show running here now, and I've heard people in the lobby talking about the cast release. And in particular, Mary Badham, who played Scout in the original show.
Yeah. No, that was beautiful. It was a beautiful casting idea, and Mary was delighted to kind of come in and join this touring company. And it's special, when you have someone like Mary who's been with the show for so long. It reminds me a little bit of when we did The Band's Visit in Cleveland, and we had Sasom Gabai, who played Tewfik in the film, coming and doing the national tour and playing Tewfik on the show. But obviously, Mary's performance as Scout is iconic in this country, because that film is just such a significant piece of sort of the American cultural fabric. So she's really an icon. She's also a lovely person, and I'm really enjoying this rehearsal process. I think this is an exciting experience for her, but it's truly an ensemble. I'm thrilled that your audiences are reading about our cast announcement and are seeing who this company of actors are, because these are just incredibly fine talents. These are truly the best of the best. And the fact that they've all, coming out of a pandemic, they all jumped onto this tour and wanted to be a part of this national tour, I think speaks a lot. It speaks a lot, to what this show is, I think, all these actors, they'd seen the show, they understand what it was that Aaron and Bart created. I think people want to work with Bart. I think people are thrilled to be in the proximity of Aaron Sorkin, who's a legend, and whose generosity to this process and whose commitment to this process has kind of been exciting, surprising, and overwhelming. He's just so generous. He and Bart both. We have great creative leadership. But our ensemble is, it's a jaw-dropping level of talent. And it's a play that deserves it. It's a story that deserves it. And I'm just so thrilled to be even near it, honestly, as a producer, that I get to support something that's this good and of this caliber, and that Cleveland audiences are going to get to come in and see this sort of world-class event. It's just very exciting.
Yeah, and speaking of the story, there'll be a lot of people that are familiar with Harper Lee's book and the popular film version of To Kill a Mockingbird. What has Aaron Sorkin done differently with this adaptation of the play?
It's a great question. I want to be careful because I actually do want to surprise people. I want people to come in and see this. So I think it's a great question, and I'll leave some of it to the audience's best guesses and for them to come in. But I will say this, Aaron, it's a true adaptation, right? This is not one of these cases where a writer just put the book on stage. I've done adaptation myself. I believe in it. I believe in the art form, and I believe adaptation is its own art form. But I also believe that what makes an adaptation great is when an artist can bring something to it that perhaps the audience didn't see before. They can shine a new light on it. You don't need to improve on the novel of To Kill a Mockingbird. You don't need to improve on the film of To Kill a Mockingbird. These are great works of art that stand on their own, as is Aaron Sorkin's play. It's a great work of art that stands on its own. It is not trying to be a mirror copy or a carbon copy of what the film was or what the book is. It's Aaron taking a fresh look at this and bringing the story and the characters that we know, and the meaning and the heart that we all gravitated to when we read the book. But he gets to do it his way. And if people know Aaron Sorkin, and I think a lot of people do, we want to see it his way because we love what he does. So it's just a perfect marriage of great source material and a great artist embracing it.
One of the things that I like to tell people before they come to see this show is to make sure to schedule time after the show with the people that you came with to just sit and talk. Great theater inspires conversation, and this is definitely a production that will inspire conversation. I can remember sitting in the audience on Broadway and not really wanting to get out of my seat after the show because it's a lot to take in. It's a wonderful opportunity for people to connect with each other. What do you hope the Cleveland audiences leave feeling after seeing the show?
Well, look, people know what the meaning of the book, or a lot of people do. If you haven't read the book, I certainly encourage everyone to give themselves the experience of reading it before or after the play. I don't think it matters. I think the play stands on its own, but it's certainly a story that has always held a mirror up to ourselves and to our country and to the history of who we are and where we come from. I think those themes and that idea is incredibly relevant. It's always relevant. And it's almost needless to say, in the time that we're living in now, it's important. It's essential, actually, that we ask questions about where we come from. We ask questions about who we are and what our culture is. And I think one of the things that makes that book so compelling, and certainly something that Aaron Sorkin completely gravitated towards, is this notion that we're all flawed. There is no such thing as a hero. There's no such thing as one person or one point of view that somehow is good and some other is bad. I think that there's a notion for me personally when I see this play and this adaptation that we're all flawed. We're all broken a little bit. And it's in the messiness of that idea that we sometimes are able to find commonality and find community. and pull each other through very difficult times and real tragedy. That's a part of what this is. And in the end, it actually is a very joyful experience, because this play does what great theater is supposed to do. It makes you feel like you're a part of a community. That's what storytelling has always been meant to do. But this isn't a big, bright, happy musical. That's not what you're coming to see. You're coming to see a serious piece of theater, and a gripping, exciting piece of theater in a way that only Aaron Sorkin could do.
Yeah, well, To Kill a Mockingbird will be on stage at Playhouse Square from April 26th through May 15th. Tickets are available at playhousesquare.org or by calling 216-241-6000. And Cuyahoga County Library cardholders should watch their email for an upcoming special offer for To Kill a Mockingbird. Orin, it was great to see you, my friend.
So good
Thanks
to
for
see you
joining
too.
us today. And we cannot wait to have your next show here on the stage at the Connor Palace.
I can't wait to bring it there. Take care, guys. Thank you.